The gas lamps of Whitechapel wept sickly yellow tears onto the slick cobblestones, each drop of light struggling against the encroaching tide of a London fog so thick it felt like a living, breathing entity. It curled around tenements, snaked through alleyways, and clung to the very breath of those who dared to walk its treacherous streets. This was autumn of 1888, and the city, once a vibrant beast of commerce and progress, now held its breath, stifled by a name scrawled in blood and fear across its very heart: Jack the Ripper. Mary Kelly, a ghost in her own threadbare shawl, shivered, the damp permeating her bones, whispering promises of consumption. Her last pence had bought a lukewarm gin from the warmth of a bustling pub, a pathetic, fleeting truce against the deeper terror that had taken root within her, festering like a gangrenous wound. It wasn't the gnawing hunger, nor the biting cold that truly chilled her. It was the unseen hand that had transformed their district into a charnel house. Every lengthening shadow, every twist of the shifting mist, seemed to coalesce into the amorphous shape of a man unseen, unheard, yet ever present. The women knew. They felt his eyes on them, a prickling sensation on their skin even when no one was there, a phantom touch that left invisible bruises. It was the scent of fear, thick and cloying, a stench that now hung heavier than the fog itself, a scent he seemed to exhale into the very air they breathed, a chilling signature. Mary clutched her worn shawl tighter, pulling it up to her chin, as if the flimsy fabric could offer protection from the unseen eyes that surely tracked her every hesitant step. She walked with a desperate slowness, each step a reluctant journey towards the inevitable, towards the sanctuary of her squalid room, or perhaps, towards something far worse. The night was a canvas of muted, sinister sounds, the distant, muffled clatter of a hansom cab, its wheels seeming to spin endlessly without approaching, the mournful, drawn-out hoot of an unseen owl, a sound that carried a primal lament, and beneath it all, a low, persistent hum, like a swarm of unseen flies gathering before a feast. Or perhaps, it was just the blood rushing in her own ears, a frantic drum against the impending silence, a frantic heartbeat against the vast, indifferent darkness. A sudden scuffle, sharp and brutal, tore through the suffocating stillness from a nearby alleyway. A choked cry, cut off mid-gasp, echoed for a terrifying heartbeat, its raw agony hanging in the air, then died, swallowed by the oppressive silence of the fog. Mary froze, her heart hammering against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage, beating its wings against impossible bars. Her breath hitched, catching in her throat like a fishbone, raw and painful. She wanted to run, to scream until her lungs burst, to unleash the torrent of terror building within her, but her feet were rooted to the spot, paralyzed by an awful, morbid fascination, by the sheer, magnetic pull of dread. Her eyes, wide with primal terror, strained against the impenetrable gloom, trying to pierce the veil of the alley, to find some tangible source for the horror. Nothing. Only the swirling, indifferent mist, an accomplice to the unseen crime. Then, a low, guttural laugh, not quite human, a sound that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality, slithered out of the impenetrable darkness. It was a sound that scraped against the raw edges of her sanity, a sound that promised unspeakable horrors, things that defied the very understanding of man. It was too close. Far too close. The air crackled with a malevolent energy, a palpable shift in the atmosphere that prickled the hairs on her arms, sending shivers down her spine. It wasn't just the sound. It was the chilling certainty that the laughter had been for her, a private joke shared with the darkness, a grotesque acknowledgement of her presence. It was a taunt. She scurried away, a desperate, broken doll propelled by an invisible string, her breath ragged, her mind a frantic scramble of forgotten prayers and whispered curses, of desperate pleas to a god who seemed to have abandoned Whitechapel. Every alleyway was a gaping maw, every corner a potential ambush, each lengthening shadow a potential assailant. The very air felt alive, charged with an invisible malice, a cold breath against her nape that wasn't the fog, but something far more personal. It wasn't just the murders that chilled the blood of London, it was the sheer audacity of them, the almost surgical precision, the way he vanished like smoke after each grotesque, ritualistic act. He was a phantom, a whisper carried on the wind, a shadow that moved between heartbeats, existing in the blind spots of the human eye, a ghost haunting the very living. They said he was a surgeon, with an unnerving knowledge of human anatomy, a butcher, with a monstrous lack of remorse, a demon clad in human flesh, walking among them, undetectable. No one knew, and that not knowing, that abyss of uncertainty, that endless speculation, was the most terrifying thing of all. It allowed every dark thought, every monstrous image, to fester and grow in the terrified minds of Whitechapel, blooming into grotesque, unimaginable horrors. Mary imagined him, always imagined him, standing just beyond the reach of her sight, his eyes, unseen, boring into her back, a tangible weight on her shoulders. Was he tall? Short? Did he wear a top hat, a workman's cap, or something else entirely? Did he carry a bag, a satchel, or were his instruments of death merely an extension of his own monstrous will, his own twisted hands? The questions swirled, maddening, unanswered, like tormented souls seeking release. She quickened her pace, her worn boots slipping on the damp cobbles, her muscles screaming in protest, each step a desperate plea for escape. She had to reach her room, her sanctuary, however squalid, however illusory. She had to believe that once behind that flimsy door, she would be safe, truly safe, from the phantom that stalked the fog. She finally reached her squalid room, the rickety door leaning precariously in its frame, a tired, forgotten sentinel. Her hands, numb with cold and terror, fumbled with the key, shaking so violently she could barely insert it into the ancient, rusted lock. The metallic screech of the key turning in the ancient mechanism seemed to echo disproportionately in the oppressive silence, a sound that grated on her nerves. She flung the door open, a desperate burst of adrenaline-fueled energy, slammed it shut behind her with a resounding thud that vibrated through the floorboards, and leaned against it, gasping for air, her lungs burning, raw with the exertion and fear. The room was cold, empty, yet she felt a presence. A distinct, unmistakable chill, colder than any autumn breeze, traced a slow, deliberate path up her spine, raising goosebumps on her skin, a feeling that went beyond the natural cold of the night. She pushed herself off the door, her trembling legs barely supporting her, turning slowly, her wide, desperate eyes scanning the familiar squalor, the stained wallpaper peeling in ghostly strips, the rickety bed groaning under the weight of her fear, the single, cracked windowpane, a blurry portal to the horrors outside. Nothing. Only the familiar clutter of her meager life, a testament to her struggle for survival. Yet, a faint, metallic scent, like old pennies and something far more grisly, seemed to linger in the air, a cloying sweetness that made her stomach churn, a taste of iron and something else, something visceral and foul. It was a scent she had heard whispered about in hushed tones in the pubs, a scent that now defined the grim autumn of London, the scent of death and its aftermath. And then she saw it. Scrawled in something dark and viscous, something that looked impossibly thick and dark, on the grimy windowpane, stark against the condensation, a single, looping letter, undeniably, J. It was crude, yet terrifyingly deliberate, like a monstrous signature, a personal mark left just for her. It wasn't there before. It couldn't be. Her eyes fixated on it, widening to impossible saucers, mirroring the horror that bloomed in her chest, a cold, blossoming dread. The J seemed to pulse, to writhe, mocking her with its silent declaration, its stark presence a stark contradiction to the emptiness of the room. Her breath caught in her throat, a choked gasp, a sound of utter defeat. The room, once a temporary haven, now felt like a tomb, its walls closing in, its air thick with unspoken dread. The air grew impossibly colder, a penetrating chill that seeped into her very bones. From the outside, beyond the glass, beyond the impenetrable fog, a low, guttural laugh echoed, closer this time, clearer, undeniably human yet chillingly devoid of humanity. It wasn't the laughter of glee, but of a cold, intellectual satisfaction, a calculating amusement. It was the laughter of a predator, perfectly content with his hunt, a cruel, mocking sound that resonated with the darkness of her deepest fears. A scream tore from Mary's throat, a raw, primal shriek of utter despair, a sound born of pure, unadulterated terror, but it was swallowed, utterly consumed, by the suffocating embrace of the Whitechapel fog. It was just another whisper in the vast, indifferent night, Another lost soul in the dark heart of London. The Ripper's dark symphony played on, a silent, unseen overture to the terror that lay in wait, unheard by all but his chosen victims, and the chilling echoes left behind. The letter J on the windowpane seemed to glow with an unholy luminescence, a silent beacon in the encroaching darkness, a testament to the chilling fact that the hunt was never truly over. It was always beginning again. And Mary Kelly, alone in her room, knew with a certainty that chilled her to her very soul, that she was no longer merely observing the terror. She was part of it.